beginners.
How you doing today, YouTube? How you doing today, vapors? Andrew Les coming back with part 3 of Vaping for Beginners. To finish off with batteries, charging them, very simple. Just like so. You're going to take your battery, take the charging cable that came with it, and screw your battery into the charging cable. Usually the charging cable has a USB connection on it. Don't recommend charging your batteries with your computer, as you don't want anything running off your computer's power source, especially not if the battery shorts out while it's charging. It can wreck your computer. So get yourself one of these, the USB to wall adapter. And that's going to be a lot better to charge your batteries with. It's going to be a lot safer, and you're going to get a better result. So, when your battery needs to be charged, generally it's going to blink a couple times anytime you try to use it. That means it's time to charge your battery. When your battery is fully charged, your light on your charger will turn green. Your battery's going to blink, letting you know it's fully charged and ready to go. So with batteries, I recommend always having at least 2 batteries. That way if one dies on you, you always got a spare. So you can be charging one while you're vaping, and that way you never have to stop and wait for a battery to charge and not be able to vape. So what we're going to get into with part 3 here is atomizers. So what an atomizer is, basically 3 parts. The bridge has a wick and it has a coil. And the bridge takes your e-liquid and it feeds it down to your wick and to your coil. The wick takes your e-liquid and helps feed it to the coil, and the coil takes the voltage from your battery and turns it into an electrical current that runs through the coil, heats up, and vaporizes the liquid into a vapor, and that's what you vape. And that is how an atomizer works. Now, atomizers come in a variety of different ohms, high resistance, low resistance. As a beginner, don't worry about that. Just go with a regular resistance atomizer. Generally going to be between 2 and 3 ohms. That will probably work best for you just as a beginner. Once you're more experienced, you can try different things and see what works best for you. I recommend going with a 510 atomizer to go with your 510 that I recommended in the previous video, or to go with your ego, and go with a regular resistance, regular ohm, which is usually 2.2 to 2.4, 2.3. So generally an atomizer will last you anywhere between a week to even a month, maybe even more, maybe less. Sometimes you get ones that don't work, sometimes you get ones that work really well. You're going to want to have 2 or more atomizers with you just in case, and that way you can try different flavors. I don't recommend using 2 different flavors in one atomizer. Unless you actually clean out your atomizer properly, the flavor is going to cross over and you're going to get a mixture flavor, which sometimes is disgusting. But generally stick with 1 flavor in an atomizer at a time. If you want to change out flavors, all you gotta do is clean out your atomizer, and there's a ton of videos on YouTube on how to do that. I'll be putting up a video on how to clean out your atomizer to get the flavors out in a little bit here. So, when you first get your atomizer, it's gonna have primer fluid in it. Now you're not gonna want to vape primer fluid because it tastes horrible, and just generally, you don't want to be vaping primer fluid. It won't harm you, but it tastes disgusting. So to get rid of your primer fluid, all you gotta do is take your atomizer, like you see here, and take paper towel. Paper towel is gonna be your best friend as a vapor. And you bunch up a little bit of it, like you see here. You put that into the end of your atomizer. Now, take the battery end of your atomizer, and you blow into it. Blow into it a couple times with a nice steady amount of pressure. And when you take the paper towel out, as you see here, there will be some fluid on it. That's primer fluid. Do that a couple times just until you don't see any more fluid coming out onto the paper towel. And your atomizer will be ready to go, de-primed. So there are 2 main ways to use an atomizer. The first way we're going to be going through is with a cartridge. This is a cartridge. All it is a plastic casing that holds filler material. Filler material, as you see here, is what holds your e-liquid. When using a cartridge, your atomizer takes the e-liquid from that filler material with the bridge. The bridge wicks the e-liquid down into the coil so that it can be vaped. Normally I don't like using cartridges myself, as I find they give a lack of flavor and a lack of vapor. If you use them, you can usually get an alright vape, but not the greatest. So just to go through, generally I get blank cartridges, that is ones that aren't pre-filled, and use my own liquid with them. I don't like using pre-filled, I like to fill my own. That way you can have full control over what flavor you're getting and what vapor you're getting. You have full control over your vape. So, to fill a cartridge, you take your cartridge, as you see here, take it out of the plastic, and take off that plastic cap. Now you'll see the filler material. All you gotta do is take your e-liquid, like you see here, and slowly drip some drops onto that filler material. Now, drip a couple drops, wait for them to soak in. Once those are soaked in, drip a couple more, and keep doing this all the way up until, like so, you get a slight pooling effect, and that way you know that your cartridge and the filler material is full. Generally it'll be between 10 and 20 drops. Now try not to overfill, otherwise you're just wasting liquid. Try not to underfill, and you're just going to get a poor vape and it won't last you very long. Now that you have your cartridge filled, take your atomizer, put it on your battery, and to prime your atomizer before you put the cartridge on, put a drop or two of e-liquid onto it, and that way your atomizer is nice and primed, the coil won't be burning dry, and you'll get a good vape. Don't recommend using atomizers with automatic batteries. Sometimes atomizers will leak, and if they do leak, that liquid's going to get into your battery and it's going to wreck things, ruin your batteries. So if you're going to go with an automatic battery, I highly recommend manual batteries. But if you're going to go with an automatic battery, check out my next video on Cartomizers. Those will work a lot better for you. So, with your manual battery, take your atomizer, drip those couple drops into it, and then you can put your cartridge on, and it's ready to vape. Now, vape time depends on how heavily you vape. Generally, with this method, you'll get between 2 to 3 cigarettes worth. I don't find when using cartridges that I get a very good vape, so I don't like using them. I find it wicks poorly, and I just generally get a bad quality out of them. So you'll know when to refill your cartridge when you start getting a different flavor. And you'll know what I'm talking about once you've vaped a couple times, started getting a dry cartridge a couple times, once your atomizer started getting dry a couple times. It'll be a little bit of a burnt kind of flavor, or a dry kind of flavor. As you vape and get more accustomed to vaping, you're going to be able to sense when to fill before you even get to this point, so you don't get that gross dry hit. And a dry hit is just how it sounds. It's the coil of your atomizer getting dry, and all you get is just a dry, burny taste instead of the taste of your liquid, which you should be getting. You're not going to want to do that very much, because that can wreck your atomizer and generally just decrease the amount of time your atomizer will last you. I don't like using cartridges, so with my atomizers, what I like to do is the drip method. The drip method, just as it sounds, just dripping a couple drops onto your atomizer and directly vaping from there. If you're going to be dripping, which I recommend, as you'll get a better flavor, better vape quality, more vapor, get yourself one of these. And this is a drip tip. It's used for dripping and used as a mouthpiece. With this, you can normally just drip right through it. You don't have to take it off to add more drops to your atomizer like you would with a cartridge. But with 510s, that hole on the drip tip can sometimes be a little small, and you may have to just remove it to add a couple more drops. Not too big of a problem. Drip tip also helps to not get any e-liquid in your mouth. When you're vaping, if you draw too hard, you might get a little liquid in your mouth. It normally doesn't taste very good. So all you're going to want to do is just rinse your mouth out with some water. Don't worry about it too much. The way to tell if you're over vaping is just if you start to get a headache or start to feel nauseous, any of that, immediately stop vaping. If it gets too bad, go and see a doctor. You might have overdosed on nicotine. Generally, if you are a smoker or were a smoker, it takes quite a bit of nicotine to get you to this point, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But just a thought. So with dripping, all you do is take your manual battery, and again, I recommend only going with a manual battery with an atomizer. And to drip, all you gotta do is take your atomizer, make sure you've got the primer out of it, put it on your battery, and put a couple drops into your atomizer, like so. So now that you have a couple drops in there and it's ready to go, the coil has a nice amount of liquid with it. All you gotta do is put on your drip tip, and it's ready to vape. Now when you drip a couple drops, 1 or 2, it'll last you about the same amount of time as a cigarette would, which is anywhere between 10 drags or so, sometimes more, sometimes less. More than often, a little bit less than that. And the way to know when to add more drops is, again, once you start getting a different taste or a different amount of vapor. So you add a couple more drops and you vape. If you overfill, that's called flooding. When you flood your atomizer, generally you'll get a little bit of a gurgly vape and juice might start leaking out, and then all you're going to want to do is just clean it. So if you overfill your atomizer and it starts getting a little leaky, you're going to want to take it off of your battery, take some paper towel, put the paper towel on the battery end of it, and blow through it. Just to get that excess liquid out. Now clean off your battery. If you got any liquid on there, clean off the end on your atomizer and make sure it's nice and dry. You don't want a bunch of e-liquid on it. Your atomizer should be good to keep going. So yeah, that is atomizers for you. As a beginner, atomizers are alright, but I highly recommend Cartomizers. Cartomizers will give you a longer vape time between fills. Lots of the time they'll give you an easier vape. So we're going to be covering Cartomizers in part 5 of Vaping for Beginners. So go check that out. As always, this has been Andrew Less with Vaping for Beginners. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.